right, y'all. Welcome to the Scott Horton Show. I am the director of the Libertarian Institute, editorial director of antiwar.com, author of the book Fool's Errand, Time to End the War in Afghanistan, and I've recorded more than 5,000 interviews going back to 2003, all of which are available at scotthorton.org. You can also sign up for the podcast feed. The full archive is also available at youtube.com/Scott Horton Show. All right, you guys, on the line, I got the great Grant F. Smith from IRMEP, the Institute for Research Middle Eastern Policy, IRMEP.org. IRMEP. And also, he wrote a ton of great books about the Israel lobby, including Big Israel, and the latest, The Israel Lobby Enters State Government. Rise of the Virginia Israel Advisory Board. You're not going to believe this, seriously, when you read this thing. It's just something else. And you can listen to our previous interview on this subject. I think it's the last one in the archive before this is all about this topic. Welcome back to the show. How you doing, Grant?
Hey, Scott. Doing well. Thanks for having me back on again.
Hey, I'm happy to have you here. Before we talk about what we're going to talk about, you have a couple things to say about the book that I just told them about, but you're going to tell them more.
Yeah, well, this book, I think it's important to know that you can now find it online at virginia.israellobby.org, and it's really a continuing saga. This is definitely an important development in those who are watching Middle East policy, in the sense that a very activist group of pro-Israel supporters are trying to create a self-sustaining ecosystem whereby Israeli companies get Virginia state grants, they get fast-track help and support to set up military contractors, food services, fish farms, glass makers for the armed forces, and all sorts of businesses that in turn will then self-sustain even more pro-Israel activism in this important state. So it's a fascinating story. And of course, given the levels of secrecy and mainly campaign finance driven access, there's a whole lot of corruption going on as well. So as a public service, this book is now out on YouTube as well. If you just put the Israel Lobby Enters State Government, you can join the hundreds, soon to be thousands of other people who have listened to the audiobook.
Awesome.
If you like Audible, fine, go buy the Audible version. But if you just want to listen to it right now after the show, or after you've listened to all of Scott Horton's shows, then you can certainly go and listen to that.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. And again, it's called The Israel Lobby Enters State Government. Rise of the Virginia Israel Advisory Board. And it really is a great read. And I bet you it's a great listen, because after all, it's Grant reading his own book. So, hey.
That's right. That's right. I didn't hire out for that one. And for those who are in the Washington, D.C. area, I will be giving a talk about the book at the same place you gave a talk somewhat recently, Scott, over at Middle East Books and More, over in Adams Morgan on February 26th at 6 p.m. So if you want to come in and get kind of a personal briefing. There's a lot going on, even stuff that's happened after the book in terms of solar energy development in particular. So be sure to come on down to Middle East Books and More if you want to see me live.
Cool. And that's next Wednesday, the 26th, you say?
Exactly. 6 o'clock p.m. And there'll be a bunch of books there and nice PowerPoints and all sorts of discussion about the book.
And what's the name of the street in D.C. that this bookstore is located at there?
Yeah, that's 1902 18th Street Northwest. So that's in Adams Morgan. And if you go to Eventbrite, you can register for that just by putting in Israel Lobby, and that'll pop right up on your screen.
Cool. Well, here's an event that's 100 times cooler even than that. Your great talk that you're going to give at Middle East Books and More over there. And that is the Transcending the Israel Lobby at Home and Abroad conference at the National Press Club, May the 28th and 29th of 2020. Can I come?
You can come, Scott, as long as you buy a ticket, and we can talk about that later. But this is, as you know, we've been doing this every year since 2014.
Says the word tickets right at the top. I think that must be where I right-click and say open a new tab.
That's right. That's right. But it is a mega event. This is the largest of any type of conference that looks at the unique and ongoing and negative role of the Israel lobby on U.S. Middle East foreign policy. It's therefore the most important Middle East foreign policy conference in the country because it's focusing on a major influence. And unlike most other conferences, it is extremely well attended. People are there for the entire day. They stay for the reception. And this year, we're even doing a little gala fundraising dinner to help pay for this massive conference the evening before, which is, May 28th, right there in the press club, the National Press Club, with all of the major speakers and some entertainment. So it's this thing just keeps getting bigger, and we're really happy that the major speakers are going to be coming in early so that they can have a lot of FaceTime with the attendees who want to go to that pre-conference
major speakers
dinner.
Who might they be?
Major speakers. Well, I mean, every speaker who speaks is a major speaker in my view, but some of these people are actually somewhat well known. And I'd certainly put Gideon Levy at the top of that. He's been to a number of our conferences. He's a columnist for the Israeli daily newspaper Haaretz, which he joined back in 1982.
He gives a great speech too, man.
He really does. And anybody
he's cracking me up last time, a couple years ago, whenever that was, I was there.
He's funny. He's really funny, but he's got this incredible stature as the dean of Israeli journalism. And most people who come and hear him speak are blown away because he is all about human rights. He's all about doing the right thing. He's all about understanding the universal human tragedies taking place in the immediate vicinity of his location in the Middle East. And so he's been writing about the West Bank. He's been writing about Gaza for 3 decades. And he's won all sorts of awards for his incredible journalism over the years. And that's earned him the moniker most hated man in Israel. And he is, routinely the recipient of all sorts of threats and bad vibes coming his way. But he really, if you watch any of the past speeches from the previous conferences or his other updates, he really is an incredible figure. And, we're lucky to have him come again.
Yeah, no question about that. And then you have Stephen Walt.
Stephen Walt, realist foreign policy maven from Harvard, of course, co-author of The Israel Lobby and U.S. Foreign Policy.
Wait, what's that called?
The book is called The Israel Lobby and U.S. Foreign Policy, published in 2007 with John Mearsheimer.
And they can read the short version at Harvard.whatever and at the London Review of Books. Is that right?
Well, I mean, they were supposed to be able to read it at the Atlantic magazine, but
no, you can't read it at the Atlantic. Why not?
Well, apparently,
I'm sorry, I'm not that funny. You just go ahead.
It's a little too hot for them. Even though they chartered it, they didn't like what it said, and so they had to get it published overseas, so to speak, their first paper on this, and it set off a firestorm because they essentially identified the Israel Lobby as a coalition of organizations that were absolutely charting a path and implementing, with the help of their campaign contribution network, policies that were inimical to the interests of all Americans in general. So it was the book created a firestorm. And the thing that Walt has been doing that's very interesting is that he continues to, and I know you've had him on your show. Wait,
before you say that, let me tell you, I actually reread a thing lately. It was called The Israel Lobby and U.S. Foreign Policy. by Stephen Walt and John Mearsheimer there. And one of the things that he talks about in there that is so interesting, Grant, that I bet was interesting to you when you read it, and that I bet would be so interesting to our audience today here if they read it, is the part about how Colin Powell, after September 11th, convinced George W. Bush that we got to do the two-state solution right now. You got a 90% approval rating. This is one of the major solutions to our problem, and we got to do it. And Bush said, okay, let's do it. And then Ariel Sharon mobilized the American Christian right. And Tom DeLay, the whip from the House, the whip, went to the White House and whipped the president right into shape. And said, you want to be a one-termer like your old dad? Or you want to do whatever Ariel Sharon says, punk? And George Bush figuratively got down on his belly and groveled and said, fine, just don't hurt me, whatever you want. And Colin Powell had to back down, and the whole thing was completely, botched and canceled. And that's the kind of thing that, man, it just sounds like, well, if you don't know the story and then you learn it for the first time, or even if you already knew the story and then you read it again, like I just did, it's so impressive. It's just something else to see that that's the way it works, all right. When George W. Bush, at his absolute height of power and authority, was absolutely helpless to have America's, to enforce the declared policy of the United States of America for the 40 years leading up to his capitulation, including his own position.
But the interesting thing, and that's a great cogent piece of evidence, but this has been going on forever. I mean, it happened with the Johnson peace plan and the Kennedy administration. It happened with the battle over Israel's drive to get nuclear weapons. And there was a plan by forthright people to say, you know what, we're not going to give you fighter jets if you do that. What happens? The Israelis mobilize the lobby in this country, and everyone's terrified to implement a tough U.S. policy of no conventional weapons if you go nuclear, that they all back down. I mean, this is the recurrent theme of American foreign policy in the Middle East and toward Israel in particular. And it is something that, it's all inevitably covered up, inevitably comes out publicly after it's far too late to do anything about it. And that's, I think, the importance of seeing a conference focused on the lobby and its role and its responsiveness to a foreign government. I mean, the bigger theme to the conference could be easily foreign meddling in the U.S. It's not where you think it's coming from. And so the thing that's good about Walt, though, is he's consistent. He's continued to write about having a different set of policies in the region that's not so Israel-centric. Mm-hmm. Of course, the key and the thing that we want to hear him speak about is, well, how do you get there given the current situation, which is the belling of the cat, so to speak. So he'll be coming.
Well, and it's important, too, right, that he's not a libertarian or a non-interventionist. He's a realist who, compared to, say, Ron Paul or something, really is a hawk. He's the kind of guy who, Ron Paul would say that we should not exercise all the power we have. We have way too much power. We should just lay it down and do our humble commercial republic business. And that's the way to be. Switzerland could afford to, have a foreign legion. They just choose not to, that's how we should be. Whereas Walt says, nah, nuts to that. I'm a realist. I know that every state is going to do what they can. And that's the rule of the world, and that the U.S. should do that too. It's just we should have in mind a more realistic idea of what we can do and what we can't. And so, in a sense, that's to his credit, that he's not a radical. He's not an ideologue. He, in fact, in a way, is very much for the application of American power. It's just he's not enthralled to a foreign government. That's all.
Right. Well, and it really does reflect the wide range of different views at this conference. There's no monolithic song sheet that everyone's reading off. And one of the things that people are typically find refreshing is there are a lot of different voices and a lot of differences of opinion about major cause and effect. And so he's obviously going to bring something to the conference that, as you rightly observe, is different and not at all going to be, given praise by every other speaker. So I think that's important that people get different viewpoints. And that's kind of been a consistent theme over the years, is trying to get as many different voices who understand the nature of the problem to come in and lend their expertise. So I'm excited to see him again. And he has, it's not like he's written the Israel Lobby 2 or anything like that. And that book came out a while ago, but he continues to be consistent on following what's going on. He keeps blogging about it, and it's entirely consistent with his latest books in terms of what he's written about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I was looking at subscribing to Foreign Policy, but it's like $35 a month or something. It's ridiculous.
Well, someone's got to pay the bills,
There's got to be a better way. Anyway,
okay, well,
and with all their connections, anyway, like, aren't they sponsored by the Carnegie Endowment in the first place? Foreign Policy, or they used to be. I don't know. They got plenty of money.
Hope so. Hope some of that money. Yeah.
By the way, I'm sorry, I can't help it. Tangent right here. Did you see at Foreign Policy yesterday? John Hanna, Dick Cheney's man, neoconservative, Chalabi handler, from the George W. Bush administration, vice president's office. John Hanna wrote a piece called "Iraq Needs Another Regime Change." And the whole thing is about, get this, somehow the Iranian-backed Shia factions have taken over Baghdad and are doing a really lousy job and need replacing.
Yep, musical chairs. You got to get back in there and put the right person in the musical chair. Yeah, of course. I mean, this is standard Hanna fare and many other fellow travelers. So
well, that's why they don't get my $35, man. No way. Can't do it.
Well, no way you can't do it. Yeah. You don't want your money going to that.
Yeah, there's always a way to go outline.com or something. I'll read the worst ones. Clear my cookies.
Well, we thought the Washington Post and New York Times have a potentially awesome new market if they will just sell the newspaper without the opinion page.
Yeah,
sell it for more. Add $10, take that out, and sell the news. Not that the news is all that great, but it would be refreshing too. So
that's funny. That's actually a really good marketing idea. Like, look, no more Fred Hyatt and the boys, just the news. It's Joby Warwick, but hey, it takes what you can get.
Less is more, and I'll pay more.
Anyway. All right, so
Roger Waters, he's coming.
Who
I don't
now?
know if you've heard of that guy.
Oh,
Roger
no, you're
Waters.
skipping ahead now. Wait a minute. I want to ask you about these other two main headliners, Sut Jolly and Joseph Massad. Who are they?
Sut Jolly is doing some of the biggest student events at the University of Massachusetts Amherst on this topic. He did a May conference called Not Backing Down with Linda Sarsour and Roger Waters and a bunch of other people talking about the suppression of free speech on campus on all issues Israel-Palestine, and just had thousands of people show up. It wasn't really focused on the lobby like our conference, but he's done an incredible job in his own research as a part of the communications department in media literacy, because he also runs an organization called the Media Education Foundation, and he did this phenomenal documentary called The Occupation of the American Mind, which is a documentary you can watch free online. It's linked from our website in his bio. Just looking at how there's this perpetual media campaign that is driving the Israeli point of view into the American mass media. And he's got these incredible clips where at any given moment, every newscaster in every major outlet is essentially saying the same thing. Like missiles raining down on, you wouldn't put up with missiles raining down on your town, would you? And it's it's so obviously coordinated and so obviously unbalanced that it was very easy for him to split screen all of that within the documentary and then examine the nature of propaganda. And so he's typically the moderator in a lot of these giant mega events he's doing over on campus, but he's actually going to come and speak about this documentary, whether things have gotten any better or whether they're getting worse, and some of the strategies that people can take for getting better informed. So he's quite a media critic, and he's right there at the center of it at UMass.
Cool. Very cool. And that's a great flick, by the way, for people who haven't seen it.
Yeah, some of it is very, it's timeless. And so you go in, I think he's going to discuss some clips. You go in and you see the clips and, it's it's timeless. Nothing's changed in the intervening years. So he's quite interesting. And then Joseph Massad has less distance to travel. He's at Columbia University. He's been there for quite a while, but he's an expert on the Palestine question. And so he's written a bunch of books on that. He's constantly speaking on settler colonialism and the nature of what's really going on, and perspectives like that, which are not typically made available to most people who are looking for information about this. You have to really go and look for it. Ilan Pappé, who's also spoken at the conference, is also an expert on settler colonialism and the nature of a movement that does not want peace, but wants land without the current occupants. So he's done a lot of work on that. He writes about Arab politics and intellectual history. Written lots of things about identity, culture, and nationalism. And he's quite attuned to what the lobby's doing. He doesn't always ascribe this or that action to the lobby. He has a lot to say about the U.S. never necessarily having intervened on behalf of a national liberation movement. You have to look far and wide for that. And so he's got a perspective and a grasp of history on this question that is really quite impressive. So I've seen him speak at a number of events, and he's making time to come down to D.C. And I believe he'll also be at the speaker dinner. So if you want one-on-one with Joseph Massad, he'll also be there.
Hold on just 1 second. Be right back. So you're constantly buying things from Amazon.com. Well, that makes sense. They bring it right to your house. So what you do, though, is click through from the link in the right-hand margin at scotthorton.org, and I'll get a little bit of a kickback from Amazon's end of the sale. Won't cost you a thing. Nice little way to help support the show. Again, that's right there in the margin at scotthorton.org. Hey, y'all, check it out. The Libertarian Institute, that's me and my friends, have published 3 great books this year. First is No Quarter, The Ravings of William Norman Grigg. He was the best one of us. Now he's gone, but this great collection is a truly fitting legacy for his fight for freedom. I know you'll love it. Then there's Coming to Palestine by the great Sheldon Richman. It's a collection of 40 important essays he's written over the years about the truth behind the Israel-Palestine conflict. You'll learn so much and highly value this definitive libertarian take on the dispossession of the Palestinians and the reality of their brutal occupation. And last but not least is the great Ron Paul, The Scott Horton Show Interviews, 2004 through 2019. Interview transcripts of all of my interviews of the good doctor over the years on all the wars, money, taxes, the police state, and more. So how do you like that? Pretty good, right? Find them all at libertarianinstitute.org/books. You need stickers for your band or your business? Well, Rick and the guys over at thebumpersticker.com have got you covered. Great work, great prices, sticky things with things printed on them. Whatever you need, thebumpersticker.com will get it done right for you. Thebumpersticker.com. All right, now tell me about your headliner.
Well, he is a somewhat well-known English rock musician who's done somewhat well-known albums with the rock band Pink Floyd, and that's Roger Waters. And of relevance to us is that he's really emerged as probably one of the most prominent advocates for Palestinian human rights, and is leading an artistic boycott of Israel that is gathering others into its fold, which is generating a lot of backlash. So in 2009, he started speaking out against the wall that Israel was building on Palestinian land to separate. He supported the Gaza Freedom March. He joined the BDS movement in 2011. And so because he's so prominent, he has generated a lot of accusations of anti-Semitism from the ADL and other Israel advocacy organizations. And he simply said that, this is the nature of it, because none of these organizations can defend Israel's record, and because they never do, and because they're never willing to put themselves in any sort of debate scenario where knowledgeable critics can address them directly, what they do is they drag critics into the public arena and accuse them of being anti-Semites. And he's certainly gotten a lot of that. If you Google him in the news, you can see that in his upcoming tour, these organizations I just mentioned successfully pressured Major League Baseball to cancel their support and promotion of his concert series. There's a constant drumbeat of accusations and smear pieces, all emanating from the lobby. So he's coming in to talk about a number of
Can I just say
things.
real quick here?
Yeah.
Because I want to hear the end of that sentence, believe me. But it's just funny to me because, well, as you said, it's not like they have a bunch of great arguments they can use other than some silly talking points and this kind of thing. But to call this particular leftist activist an anti-Semite out of all of them is pretty rich, considering that he's most famous for the album The Wall that he wrote pretty much alone. I think maybe Gilmore wrote one of them or something. And the whole story is how it starts off with how alienated he is because his father died fighting the Nazis in Italy. And so that's why he grew up without a father, because the Nazis killed him. And then they want to go around and talk about what a Nazi he is when it's the single most defining thing about his character to him, as he sang to us. We already all know that about him. You know what I mean? And even in that story, the character becomes a Nazi for a minute and then realizes that, that probably shouldn't do that. Anyway, the whole story of The Wall is the story of what a Nazi Roger Waters isn't. That's what it's about.
Right. And I mean, it's just not.
Okay, that's not what it's about, but that's in the background of the story. You know what I mean?
It's not. Yeah, it's no barrier, though, for the smear campaign. The smear campaign is all about economically taking away his ability to continue to be an artist, to, punish him. And so, nobody likes to come in and talk about that sort of thing. Here's a story of my, enemies attacking me all the time. So he typically comes in and talks about other things. And I think he even read a poem at the last event he was at, because there were others there who had already kind of covered his topic. But anyway, he's an extremely interesting speaker. He's not, again, proof again, we're inviting all types of people to discuss this. Doesn't have much in common with Stephen Walt, that's for sure. Doesn't have much in common with many of the others. And yet he's out there and he's trying to raise these issues in his own unique way. So, he's also going to be great at the speakers dinner and conference, and just an incredible high profile person who to date is managing to, stay on tour and keep delivering his messages. So I guess he's got a major conference tour, Us Plus Them tour, or no, I guess it's got a new name, but coming around the U.S. and should be quite powerful. He typically these days is even trying to educate his audiences more by throwing out some new props and all sorts of messages to them. So he's definitely living the life out there.
Yeah. Well, and you can see why they're targeting him as mercilessly as they are, because, when you say he joined up the BDS, that also means he tries to bring up to any, at least, musical artists. I don't know who all, how broad it goes, but there's constantly controversy about Roger Waters, and these other people with him are trying to shame this and that star into not going to play in Israel. And that they're somewhat effective with that, too. I mean, I know there are a lot who go anyway, but there are a lot of people who said, you know what, I didn't know about that, but now that I do, I'm with you.
Right. And he's not a bully, but there's some full-scale contentious exchanges on Twitter and all sorts of visible public forums of him saying to this or that artist, you shouldn't go, and here's why you shouldn't go. And it's something that nobody on the other side wants to see. They don't want to see someone explaining in stark terms why it might not be a good idea to play in the country until there's at least, some movement going toward just outcomes. So,
and by the way,
it's amazing.
I mean, it's silly to even bring up, but it's, the crux of the whole thing. For people who never get to hear this stuff, and who the only time they ever do get to hear anything about anything like this is from the point of view of the Hawks, who would always just argue that the only reason anyone would ever criticize Israel is because of anti-Semitism or something like that. If you actually ever listen to the critics of Israel, all they ever do is talk about the helpless, innocent Palestinian victims of their occupation. That's not anti-Semitism. That's just taken up for the natives who, they don't even get to keep their little reservation. Even their reservation is being occupied and taken from them. That's all it is. And why else would Roger Waters care? Why would he be sticking his neck out for something like this, except that, one side has all the power and is lording it over the other side, and in the worst way. And that something's got to be done about it. That's all. Give me a break. Right. These people, all of them are, essentially liberals. There's no, ethnic, motivation in here anywhere, or religious or anything like that. There couldn't possibly. Where would it fit? Between Stephen Walt and Roger Waters is some kind of hatred? Give me a break. That's stupid.
Well, it is, but it's one of the main arguments now. Recently, the Washington Examiner, I guess in January, had a whole issue explaining as carefully as it could the exact point that you're arguing over, which is that, no, it really is. This really is anti-Semitism looking for a human rights cover. And so there are a lot of people hard at work trying to say it can't possibly be concern about human rights. It can't possibly be concerned about just the ongoing war and destruction and chaos. It absolutely has to be that. And so, articles like The Truth About Anti-Semitism and also The Virus Spreads in America. And it's, I guess it's a sign that there's a lot of worry that a lot of these principled arguments are just getting heard too much. But it's a lot of, it's a lot of responding to valid charges with smear and defamation, basically.
Yep. Well, and I mean, there you go. Meanwhile, if you actually listen to any of these people, none of what they say has anything to do with criticizing Jews ever. So, boy, are they careful, huh? With their deniability. Anyway.
It can't possibly be that they're.
Listen, let me ask you this. Upright. How come you change the name of the conference every year? It's kind of confusing.
I guess it is. It's been called different things at different times. The first one was the National Summit on the U.S.-Israel Special Relationship. It was kind of a groundbreaking conference. Then we switched into the Israel Lobby is it good for the U.S.? Is it good for Israel? Then we switch to other themes, and it's for a long time just been Israel lobby and American policy. Why have we switched? Because this one is talking about, in some speakers, which haven't been announced yet, but will next month, how you get above and beyond all of this. Because unbeknownst to a lot of people, the lobby doesn't just continue to win and win and win. There's a lot more pushback on it. There's a lot more challenge on the ground to what they're trying to do. And I don't think the lobby, in particular AIPAC, has been on the run as much as it has been as in recent years. And so Transcending the Israel lobby at home and abroad is about as much what's going on as what people are doing to fix the situation. And it's not always about voting for this or that candidate. It's, in many cases, about doing things to economically challenge, doing things to get out messaging, to change people's media consumption, all sorts of things to really get beyond some of these terrible policies and power configurations that have been doing so much harm. So, maybe we'll be able to stick with it. The one thing we have stuck with, though, is the URL IsraelLobbyCon. So if you just type IsraelLobbyCon into your browser, it just means the Israel Lobby Conference, the conference that's focused on the lobby. You'll come up to our website 2.0, launched yesterday, which shouldn't break on your phone or web browser or tablet, and you can see all that information. And we've always in the past few years just been calling it IsraelLobbyCon, so that people could use that short reference to get information, whether it's watching the live stream on the day of the conference or coming to get information about going or wanting to contact, an organizer about, some aspect of the conference. So try it out. Oh, if it breaks, don't tell me until we're off the air.
It looks good right now, man.
Good.
I'll say that on you.
Yeah. So shorthand reference, IsraelLobbyCon. And, I think our theme, the themes are always a lot of brainstorming. Like, we want to uncover this set of topics. We want to talk about these developments. We want to focus this Middle East policy discussion on these elements. What should we call it? And there's a lot going on to get to the right name. And I like this one. I like this one a lot. And
I like it too. Transcending the Israel lobby at home and abroad.
Right. And then I have to mention, integrated into the logo are the organizers, the Washington Report on Middle East Affairs, which has had great authors like Sheldon Richman writing for it at times, and me and all sorts of other people. They're the conference co-organizer, and then IRMEP is the other. So 2 sponsors. It's at the National Press Club, but it is not a National Press Club event. We're doing it there for a lot of reasons, including the fact that it is a one-of-the-kind facility dedicated to free speech, and also a beautiful facility. But they're not sponsoring it. It's us.
Yeah. All right, and now tell me this, too, not to take away from the upcoming event here, which, again, is May 28th and 29th?
Right. I mean, you don't have to go to the speaker dinner.
Oh, it's the dinner is the 28th. The 29th is the conference.
Right. The conference is all day. It's a marathon event. Registration opens at 8. You could be there till 10 p.m. if you've got the stamina, because right after the conference and lunch and breaks and ideas fair, which I hope we talk about, is a giant reception with all sorts of beverage and hors d'oeuvres that really, I think it's been some of the central successes of this conference series, because various organizations have come out of that networking event. It's really designed to get people together, whether from the same state or same idea, same vertical, to discuss, what they've seen and what they want to do.
Cool.
So that's extremely important. But for the past 2 years, last year and this year, we have this group of activists and information and alternative media organizations that comes together for what we're calling the Ideas Fair. basically you get a passport with all their names on it, and you can circulate around to them during the breaks and during the conference if you want to talk to every single one of the booths and get an idea of what they're doing. And so that's been a really incredible time. You fill out your passport, you get another drink ticket. So it's, it's an amazing time. And
you know what I like about going to it too? Is I run into my heroes just sitting in the crowd. Hey, look, there's Ray McGovern. Hey, look, there's Jim Loeb. Hey, Gareth Porter, my main man, and Max Blumenthal, and whoever, all kind of great people show up at this thing.
Yeah, I'm just amazed.
Karen Katowski.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I can't out anybody who's got a ticket or registered, but I'm just blown away by some of the names. I mean, people who have legitimately, sometimes they just show up when they should be on the stage. It's like, it's amazing. It really is amazing. So that'll happen again, believe you me.
Cool, man. All right, and I was going to say, not to take away from the upcoming event, but is it easy for people to watch videos of speeches of Israel-LobbyCon's past?
Yeah, it's not on the website 2.0 quite yet, but it will be soon. A link to all of the past conferences, all the YouTube videos. They're also archived on C-SPAN, most of them. But it's extremely easy, and some of them have hundreds of thousands of views and have been translated to other languages. So if you go to the website by next week, you'll see the links to previous conferences. And then, yes, it is live streamed. It's always live streamed on the organizer and the conference websites. So if you don't have a chance to come, you can definitely watch that and get the archival video within, a very short time. It also goes out as a podcast. Then later it's transcribed and published by the Washington Report. So the information gets out. And we've been, suitably impressed that people realize this is the place to put out their major point of view and research on the issue. And so the speakers really step up to the challenge. So it's there's incredible content out there. Gets many, many views every day. And it's part of the reason we do the conference is to develop this work.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you know what is a really great speech from your conference that just happened to come to mind was Jim Loeb, Neoconservatism in a Nutshell. And I love that speech, and mostly also just because I love Jim Loeb so much. And I happen to remember that the way he introduces it is like, well, I was going to try to see if I can briefly sort of, and then he just lays out this perfect, like you couldn't ask for a better explanation about what is going on with these kooks than what he explains in that thing. It's just perfect. And that's a good start for people if they want to go back and start watching those videos, see if you can get YouTube to serve them up in the margin, but start with Neoconservatism in a Nutshell by the great Jim Loeb there.
Yeah, that's an incredible video. It's an incredible presentation. There's nothing he doesn't know about the neoconservative movement. He's been following every twist and turn since they began, basically.
Yeah, since the 70s, for real.
There's nobody who writes about it or blogs about it with that sort of in-depth knowledge. And so, the fact that he gives an overview in 21 minutes and 40 seconds, it's like the TED Talk on neoconservatism. I mean, you're just not going to see anything better than that. Yep. And then it just stays and stays and stays. Same with Lawrence Wilkerson. He's got 100,000 views on his one of his videos. He's spoken several times where he's talking about the Israeli influence on U.S. foreign policy, kind of in the vein that you were talking about with Colin Powell. Just the incredible, behind the scenes weight that Israel carries in major policy decisions. So, that's what I'm talking about. That's the work. That is what's getting out there.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, I'm so glad that you're doing this again, and I very definitely will see you there. It's May 28th and 29th, 2020 here, Transcending, the Israel Lobby at home and abroad at the National Press Club. Find out all about it at IsraelLobbyCon.org, or of course just go to IRMEP, the Institute for Research Middle Eastern Policy, IRMEP.org, and find all the links from there. Thank you again, Grant.
Thank you, Scott.
Oh, and again, you guys, Grant is the author of The Israel Lobby Enters State Government, Rise of the Virginia Israel Advisory Board, which is on sale now. But also you can read the whole thing for free online, and you can listen to the audiobook on YouTube too, he said. How do you like that?
The Scott Horton Show, Anti-War Radio, can be heard on KPFK 90.7 FM in LA, APSradio.com, antiwar.com, scotthorton.org, and libertarianinstitute.org.